Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin, and today I wanted to make a video talking about how to make frugal living magical, because I think that it's really easy to do this just by shifting your mindset and sort of viewing it, rather than as deprivation, viewing it as an opportunity. And it's something that I like to practice in my own life, and it helps me to feel grateful for the things I have, and I just wanted to share some of it with you. Potato's saying hi. It's very, very sunny here right now, and I was thinking about making a video in the garden, but then I decided against it because the wind is really, really strong, and I thought it might make it hard to hear. But yeah, it's kind of blinding, but I'm enjoying it at the minute because there's been so little sunlight here recently. And I'm looking forward to being able to do more writing in the garden. And I actually got a wind warning on my phone, so maybe that's the beginning of it, but it still looks pretty through the window, and there is a nice blue sky. So yeah, thinking about like making frugal living magical, like you don't need to have money to make your life magical. I feel like making your life magical is more about finding magic in the small things, and finding magic in things that could just be daily habits, but you make them into little ceremonies and make them into like little rituals to be excited about. And like there are times in life where I think that there are a lot of like grand changes that come at once and like huge events, and then there's times where it feels like nothing's really changing, and I'm kind of having one of those phases myself at the minute. But like even throughout those times, like you always have the power to like make your own moments throughout the day exciting. So I've just been thinking about that and focusing on the positives and trying to turn all of the little moments and pauses throughout the day into something to look forward to. So the first thing I was going to say is I think sometimes whenever you're having trouble saving money, it can be because you've kind of made money too big in your mind. Like you've made it into something kind of powerful in a way, and it's become something to fear because you kind of have blown it up in your mind, not in a way like as in the quantity of it, but I mean like giving it more power in your life than it needs to have. Like I find whenever I'm struggling to save money and I kind of get in a negative train of thought where I'm thinking about like, oh, I've spent this money and now I don't have enough for this, or it's like you're giving it too much time in your head. But if you can kind of even like visualize shrinking it down so it becomes like tiny in your head, and then you just think of it as something that facilitates things in your life rather than the focus of your life, like I think that really helps me to get into a frugal mindset, and then that makes me feel more appreciative of it. And yeah, it's just helpful in making yourself feel inspired about saving money. Another thing I like to do to help myself with the frugal mindset and turning it into something to be excited about is to turn it into a game of how much fun can I have without spending any money. Like just like a little challenge for yourself, like what could I do today that is free or really cheap, and that makes me feel enriched. Focusing on experiences over stuff is like a really good way to get into the right mindset for saving money. And if you can focus on like, what am I saving for that is fun, that I'm going to do, rather than thinking of saving as something boring or dull that you have to do, or like a way of depriving yourself. It's like figuring out, what do I really want to do that's fun, and then thinking ahead and saving and having savings goals towards that. And I think even if you have a main savings goal, like for example for a house, which can still be something to be excited about, but say you have something that it's not the type of thing that naturally makes you excited, it's more like a chore, I think it's important to have a little savings fund on the side where you can put fun money, and that is specifically for things you've thought through that you really want to do. And that can be really helpful. Like, money can't decide whether or not you have fun, and I find like some of the times that I think back to where I'm like, that was a really magical day, it wasn't because I spent any money or I was even thinking about money kind of wasn't even a consideration because I was just busy with other things, and it was mostly to do with like companionship and like wandering and finding fun and funny situations and like laughing about things, enjoying music, like just the things that you can't buy with money. I think if we kind of like focus on our sensory experiences, a lot of those things don't require money, but it makes your life feel magical. Like if you make a tea ritual for yourself or a little coffee ceremony, and you have like time in the afternoon where you set aside and you sit down and intentionally have it with your book and make like a nice little like place to sit for yourself, like kind of do a little setup of like a display of things on your table, even like candles, flowers, like something that inspires you. Like it could be a photograph, or it could be pictures that make you feel excited or happy, like it could be a postcard, it could be like something colourful, or just gathering together colourful items in your room and putting them in front of you. I think making it into a little arrangement instead of just like grabbing a cup of coffee to go, do you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like making it into something that's a real treat, and it's like a plan that you've made for yourself, and it's like it's all about being present in the moment and enjoying it. I think that can be applied to so many sensory experiences, like having a bath, for example, can be one, because it can be an immersive thing where you're like, you have like nice scented bath products, you have a candle, you have like a cup of tea or a nice glass of wine, and you're just completely in the moment, and remove all distractions like your phone and stuff so that you can fully immerse yourself in the experience. And I think it can also apply to things like going for a walk in the park, and now that we're coming into spring there'll be more opportunity for this, like, and smelling flowers. Like I love to go to a rose garden when the roses are out with my kids and walking around and sniffing the flowers and just smelling the scent of roses. It's so like pungent, and it's uplifting. Yeah, I think just like savouring the things you eat instead of just kind of shoveling food in as if it's like I'm just feeding myself to feel full, or I'm feeding myself because I should eat now. Instead, making it into a real experience of like taking your time over it, really tasting the food and thinking about how it makes you feel, like thinking about it as nourishing your body or just treating yourself if it's like a treat item. And the same with like music and dance and things like that, like where you're kind of in your body instead of your mind and you put on music. I just think it creates an instant like atmosphere depending on the type of music that it is, and that can be like a way to make your day magical, just creating that ambience for yourself with something that makes you feel happy and excited. I like to think of frugal living as a chance to think outside the box, because we can be lazy and just go for like things that are already laid out in front of us but that cost money, or you can be more creative and think like, what could I do instead of that? What is there a way around that like just makes everything more exciting, and like, what can I do that makes this experience unique, instead of it just being like a generic thing where like anybody could just throw their money at the situation and it's sorted. Like you instead can find alternative ways to do things and alternative forms of entertainment, and ways to do things with people that you care about that aren't like the norm or like just the conventional idea that you would go for just because it's like obvious. I think if you really focus on your connections with people, it's magical because like you can have loads of money but still be completely isolated and alone and not happy with your life. And I think like the time that you spend with people, if it's like meaningful time spent, it really like changes your whole life. And I think a lot of us are too much like in our phone screens and not enough in the moment now. And I think just having a real conversation with someone, it can make your day feel magical, just feeling that connection to somebody and feeling like they totally get you, and like putting aside time and sitting down and doing something together, like if it's a board game or like you can make up even a game of your own. Like I've done that before with my partner where I make up like cards and they're like question cards and things like that, and it's just a good way to get talking and share things. I like to also sit and write down like memories and think about the times that I've really enjoyed and the things that I've done and what was it that made the day so magical. Like, and it can just be the simplest things in life. Like I had a friend whenever I lived in Glasgow, and she just was one of those people that like being around her, it just like filled you up with ideas and inspiration, and she made you feel excited about the things that she was excited by. But when I think back to like what we did together, none of it really cost much money. Like now and again we might have gone on a night out or something, but mostly we were just in her flat, and her flat had like a real kind of vintage feel to it, I think because it was like a lot of 1960s pieces and furniture, and she was interested in that too, which I always love that stuff. And I have a coffee table from the 60s as well, and his hair is like floating through the air and landing on me and tickling me. But yeah, we used to she had a huge record collection, which obviously cost money, but she used it constantly, and she would just put on all these different records and introduce me to things that I hadn't heard before, and we would spend hours just sitting talking and smoking probably and drinking chai tea and listening to records. And I remember another time going over and she decided to make meatballs for us to have together for lunch and made like chai tea to go with it, and she had a flatmate that I was friends with too who would put pepper in her chai tea, and they just had a way, I think because they were French as well, it was like a way of making the small experiences in life feel really like delicious, if you know what I mean. Like I think the French have a real talent for that. And I also remember her making like whole wheat pancakes, which to me felt like interesting because I hadn't made them before, even though I'd made pancakes, and like it just became like a signature dish of hers. She would always find these like icons to kind of like emulate in a way, and I think like sometimes it is exciting in life to feel like you've got people to look up to, like and it can be somebody just who you think is brave or who's in the public eye, but they have something about the way they live just inspires you. And she would always fill her space with items that inspired her. Like she was really into taking like, you know, like Polaroid pictures and then putting them up on the walls, and she always took photos of her friends when she was with them, and then she would send you the photos later, and it just felt like she made every moment you were with her really special and memorable. And it was like she kind of captured a little like she captured a picture of that moment that lasts beyond it. And I remember like also with my flatmates in Glasgow, we used to have a fajita night where we would make fajitas together, and it didn't matter what we were doing or how busy we were. Once a week we would sit down and have fajitas and wine and watch something silly together on TV and just chat. And it wasn't an expensive activity, but it made you feel rich. And I also used to really love jamming like with bands, because I used to play with bands because I played drums, and I always loved playing gigs and I loved practicing no matter what we were doing. But I would enjoy like jamming sessions where you just played what you felt like playing and you experiment and you just kind of go with the flow and get into a particular mood where you're just like creating without thinking about it and seeing where it goes, and there's no pressure to produce anything. I had a friend who we used to like go and sit outside in places and share earphones and listen to music together and then talk about it, and that felt really special, and it didn't cost a penny. Like we could have been sitting on a curb, and okay, at the age of 20 for some reason that feels slightly more like like age appropriate or something, but there's nothing to stop you doing that now, and you can still go and sit in a park with a friend and listen to music together, or like, I think there's a nice thing in sharing that experience and you're both hearing it at the same time as each other. I've also loved days where I like take my kids to the beach and they climb on rocks and I sort of join them, and then we poke around in rock pools, and there's no real agenda or plan for the day, but you just kind of see what happens, and it can be really inspiring too. I like to sometimes get a coffee or bring a coffee with me and just go and sit in the park, and you'll get talking to people while you're there. And I find, particularly since having a dog, like, it just sparks conversations with strangers even more often than before. But I always kind of got into conversations with strangers, and I really love those exchanges that you have with them, and how it's like you're sort of passing into each other's lives for a minute and just like trying to leave some positivity there. And I just think if you have all the money in the world and you can just spend whatever you want, it can make you kind of lazy about like being creative, because you've got an easy answer all the time and money's just right there and you can use it to solve every problem and pay for everything that you would otherwise have to dream up yourself. And I just view frugal living as like a chance to exercise your creativity and like make the most out of the smallest moments in life. So I hope this video is helpful to somebody, and thanks so much for watching. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe for more content, and I will see you soon.